Hello, hello, and hello again, my nerds, my comic book nerds. Welcome back to Tales from the Longbox. This is the weekly roundup, and I'm your host, Bryan Lamb, and I am not joined tonight by anyone. Danny Wade is, Danny Wade is still missing in action, and Paul Davis is once again lost in the Phantom Zone. In all seriousness, we hope to have both guys back next week. On February 18th, we will be recording, not airing, but recording our first official guest spot on Tales from the Long Box. David Taylor II will be joining us. I am super excited to talk to David. He's a true comic book fan, and he's the sort of person who doesn't have to tell you that he's a comic book fan because it's apparent with everything that he tweets on Twitter and everything that he says on his shows. It just exudes from him. He is a true comic book fan, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun to talk to him. That'll be coming up. Really, I think it's going to be next week's Tales from the Longbox weekly roundup episode. We'll have him on. And coming in March will be our second guest, Sean Wang, the creator of Runners, a wonderful science fiction webcomic, will be joining us. And he's going to time this appearance with the release of Volume 3 of Runners, which is just a fantastic series. Again, I can't wait to talk to him because I really enjoy that particular webcomic. It has a lot of the Star Warsy kind of vibes to it, and I'm a major fan of that kind of thing. So look forward to Sean being on the show. I look forward also to getting my signed hardcover of Volume 1 of Runners. That should be coming soon. I will show that off on Twitter and here on the show when I get it. So, without Paul and Danny here to contain me a little bit, I'm probably going to rant at some point tonight because I'm going to be talking about a lot of future state stuff. So this week was a weird week of comics. Paul and I talked a little bit about that on Paul's pull list, that there were still a lot of comics coming out this week, but there didn't seem to be the same level of comics. Like, the level of excitement wasn't there for these comics. This is a lot of the future state stuff was the same stuff that was in week 3 of Future State, and it's the continuation or culmination of those titles. And I wasn't really impressed with the week 3 stuff, so I wasn't really looking super forward to this. King in Black, there weren't a lot of major tie-ins this week. There were some, but not a lot. And then Paul and I talked about some stuff from Image and even Dark Horse that we would read for this week. So here's where all that picks up. Let's start with Daredevil, the King in Black tie-in. This is the second Daredevil issue to tie into King in Black, and it's fantastic. It's an excellent issue. It feels maybe not like it's vital to the King in Black storyline. Like, I don't know that this impacts the outcome of King in Black at all, but it gives you that really solid flavor. What's going on down on street level as this massive event is taking place all over the earth. So, the first issue did that really well, and this one continues right along. I hadn't read Daredevil in a long time, and this is a really solid 2 issues here that makes me think I might read more Daredevil after this King in Black tie-in is over. So Elektra as Daredevil right now, but then Matt Murdock just broke out of prison, so um, you know, do we get both of them as Daredevil for a little while? I don't care. That's fine. I'm looking forward to reading some more of this Daredevil run. Not at all disappointed in this. Um, so far, the Daredevil issues and the Immortal Hulk one shot that again didn't have anything to do with the grand tale of King in Black, but it made you feel the impact of this event on on the people on the street a little bit. So those to me have been the really successful ones. The ones that have been thrown out there like they're pretending that this is going to impact the King in Black storyline in some massive way, but haven't done anything. Those haven't worked as well. So this was a good one to kind of get my juices going a little bit for the King in Black crossover again. I'm back to being a little bit excited for the next issue and for the next Venom tie-in as well. This was good stuff. This was good stuff. This helps overcome a little bit of that crossover fatigue that I was feeling along with Paul. Last week. As long as you're putting stuff like this out, it's fine. So we'll dig into Future State just a little bit, and I'm gonna go on a rant here. I'm just gonna, because I'm so disappointed in this. I'm so thoroughly disappointed in this. Now, first, let me talk about Dark Detective. Dark Detective, I was relatively happy with the first couple of issues of Dark Detective. Not a massively must read comic, but it was good. It's, to be honest, I'm a little jealous because I always had this idea in my head, like if I ever pitched a Batman story to DC Comics, it would be Bruce Wayne loses all his money. You defund Bruce Wayne and you send Batman to his roots as a detective. Focus on his detective skills, and that's sort of what this is. And I'm a little jealous that somebody actually kind of really took that and ran with it. And it's good. I like seeing that angle of it, that you get Bruce sort of stripped down, bare bones, not hiding behind the gadgets, because that's not really what the character started out being. This issue, Bruce comes face to face with Jace, Tim, whatever you want to call him, the next Batman, and it was a little anticlimactic. I expected more interaction, and it was just a couple of pages and sort of a, I'm watching you. No, I'm watching you. Well, I'm Batman. Well, I invented Batman, and they just sort of wander off in different directions. The dynamic there was weird, and I don't know why. I wanted to see these two guys interact. That's just, that was a little off. Why have them meet and then they don't really discuss what's going on in Gotham? They don't discuss how they might help one another. They just kind of awkwardly banter and then go away. That's odd. So, all in all, the Batman, well, the Dark Detective part of the story was okay. It was okay. The Grifter story was fantastic, and again, it's set in that whole Gotham universe, so it's consistent with everything that's come before it, and there's a fair bit of humor in it, but also there's some serious drama that goes on there. And interestingly, they paint Luke Fox as a bit of a dirtbag in this issue, which was not something I expected at all. But there it was. So it was the Grifter really kind of sold the issue. Dark Detective was okay, and then Grifter was great. So, all in all, that was a pretty solid issue. Now, Future State Green Lantern #2, on the other hand, it's just a mess, man. It's just a mess. I'm I'm struggling to understand how they get this terrible idea to introduce with their cosmic stories. They've introduced, you know, characters who are from planets that are that feature prominently in the Legion of Superheroes, right? That's 31st century, okay? And this this is taking place in the relatively near future. So how is it that these planets and these people of the United Planets that they've now brought into the modern day instead of the future, how is it that their lingo doesn't change between now and the 31st century? Right? They're still saying Greif. Um, you know, their societies look the same as they do in the future. It's kind of, I don't know. They don't think about that. They want to bring so many elements of the Legion of Superheroes from the future into the present DC universe. It just isn't working. That's not really the main issue here, though. The main issue here is that the Green Lantern setting, is once again the scene of a catastrophic post-apocalyptic future. Okay, something terrible happens, and the central battery is destroyed, and no one can use their rings except, I guess, Teen Lantern, because hers is this gauntlet thing that's a little different, and apparently uh, Sojourner from uh, Farpoint is that what it's called? Oh wow, it's been so long since I've read that issue or that comic. I've forgotten the actual name of it now. Um, but Sojourner Mullen, she's got a different kind of ring, I guess. So hers still works. Um, but I, man, does everything have to be destroyed? Do we have to tear everything completely down? Is that what we do in the DC universe now? That's what the future is. Is everything gets destroyed everywhere? It's I don't know. It's a bleak, dark future, and I'm gonna go deeper with that here in a few minutes here. So I like the character Teen Lantern. I thought she was fine as part of Young Justice. I don't know that she works outside of that comic though. She fit the tone of Young Justice, and the tone worked with her. Bringing her into the mainstream as as what, a sidekick to somebody, a sidekick to a Green Lantern? Really? That's what we're gonna do now? I don't. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like that's a setting where she works. Put her in the Teen Titans. She's a teen. Put her in the Teen Titans. No, no, we're gonna make her a sidekick. The first ever Green Lantern sidekick, because that's something we needed, apparently. I don't get it. John Stewart has a look. Again, I like John Stewart as a Green Lantern, but all of a sudden, the fact that he's like this super badass hand-to-hand combat guy, um, particularly with like swords, I don't see where that comes from. Where the hell does that come from? Um, that that doesn't seem to fit with who John Stewart was. So yeah, I get it. They're trying to redefine the character, but you don't keep anything of the original guy, really. You just throw the original guy away and say, well, now this is Jon Stewart. He's a badass hand to hand, fighting with weapons guy. What? Oh, he's Green Lantern. I am very sick and tired already of the bleak future that DC has painted, and I don't understand. The Flash comic, the Future State Flash comic, really just pushed me over the edge, because the Future State Flash comic is so bleak, so depressing, horrifyingly depressing. Why would any Flash comics fan ever want to read that comic? Why? Why do you think that's something that's going to appeal to Flash fans? You're making me suspect your motives here. I'm trying to take this at face value, but you're making me suspect your motives, DC. I don't know. I am an advocate for DC just sucking it up and going ahead and creating a brand new generation of heroes and leaving them in that role, right? Don't undo it. Leave them in that role and put the other guys in a parallel universe. And if you want to tell more stories with Bruce Wayne as Batman, you can, but now this guy is Batman. I'm okay with that. I am. But we're instead going to compromise again. We're going to go halfway again, if we even went halfway. We're going to destroy everything about continuity, destroy everything that's good and hopeful about the heroes that were there, and create some new heroes, but we're not really committing to them, right? You're not committing to them, DC. So let's just take this rant to the next step. Future State Green Lantern sucks. Okay, it sucks. Don't read it. Future State Teen Titans is nearly as bad as Future State Flash. It's almost that bad. Because what they do is they finally sort of reveal how all these connect that aren't in the Gotham universe, right? Or in the Gotham-centric titles. So what you have is there's a connection between the Flash storylines and the Teen Titans storylines and the Shazam storylines. So the way that works is the Teen Titans, some young Titan wannabes at the Academy, messed around with the Dial H for Hero dial and did something stupid involving Roy Harper. Trying to call his spirit back or something stupid like that, and somehow this unleashed the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Yeah, war, pestilence, famine, death. The whole shtick that Marvel has done far more successfully than DC. So they went there. They went that route, and so that's how Flash, Wally West, becomes, pestilence somehow. They apparently, these entities possess these characters. So they unleash these 4, and these 4 go on some rampage, and are part of decimating the earth, and helping to create the post-apocalyptic nightmare future. And in this issue, they don't fix anything. They don't really fix anything. They capture the 4 entities finally, and at great sacrifice, they lock them away. And here's the tie into Shazam. They lock them away inside Raven, and Raven has to then be locked inside the Rock of Eternity. So she's one sacrificial lamb, and then Shazam is the other, because he's going to be split into 2. Shazam, aka Captain Marvel, and Billy Batson will be separated, and one will be left to guard the Rock of Eternity, and the other gets to be free. And it turns out it's not which one you would expect. So there's a way to continue to just destroy the legacy of Captain Marvel and Shazam. Billy is trapped on the Rock of Eternity, and Shazam goes free, and the mortal world begins to corrupt him and make him become a serial killer who kills heroes. Because that's the kind of story Shazam fans want to read about their hero. They want to read about how he becomes a serial killer and kills good guys. Right? That's what the Shazam crowd wants. Like Flash fans want to read about multiple Flashes dying. Everyone who was a part of the Flash legacy is dead. And Barry Allen, was depowered, and none of them had any speed, so they weren't even really the Flash anymore. They were just these guys, and now they're all dead. Oh, wow. What a great story that is for a Flash fan to read. Teen Titans finishes up with, I guess, a few Teen Titans left alive, but not many, and they all hate each other and are disillusioned and battle scarred to the point of not even being recognized. So what fun that is. Yeah, give me more of that, man. Give me more of that. But it ends. That issue ends with the amazing promise to come back for Titans Academy, the new ongoing series in Infinite Frontier, and you can see how we got here. Read all about how things got this bad. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Your plan, DC, is to give us a really horrific setting where everything has been destroyed and everyone is depressed and just bereft of hope, right? And now you want us, the fans, to come along for the excruciating ride to find out how it got that bad to begin with? What do you think this is? What do you think this is? Do you guys even know how to make comics anymore? I mean, really? I don't understand. I don't understand the motivation to create a comic book that basically pisses all over everything that has ever been that comic book and leaves you with a bleak, hopeless feeling, and then you hold out your hand and say, "Now come along, and I'll give you more of this." No, you won't. You won't. Listen, if I want to read darker, edgier, grimmer stories, Image Comics does it far better than you ever will, DC. Image Comics absolutely tells more in-depth, gripping stories with their... Look, listen, I'm going to tell you, I gave a negative review to The Scumbag because of some of the disturbing stuff about that comic. But that comic, at least is just something new that goes in some disturbing directions. And your stuff is just taking a dump all over your legacy. I'd rather read The Scumbag than read any more of this garbage. Fortunately, there are a couple of glimmers of hope, but only a couple. Listen, Kara Zor-El's Superwoman, if you like sticking red hot pokers in your eyes, read that comic. That's horrific too. It's just... yeah. But Wonder Woman obviously is a whole different ballgame. There was no post-apocalyptic nightmare in the Wonder Woman Future State issues. And so I definitely want to read the Wonder Girl comic that'll be starting in May. I want to read that. Superman Wonder Woman. That seemed to handle those two characters pretty well. Pretty well. Yara Flor was fairly consistent with her characterization in the other two issues, and there was no hint of the post-apocalyptic nightmare world in this story either. I enjoyed it, and it there's drama, there's conflict, but it's not darkness and bleakness. So they're gonna have to figure out that if you want to build something new, then go build something new. But you don't have to destroy everything that came before to build something new. You don't. You have the greatest plot device in the history of plot devices. You invented it, for Pete's sake, the multiverse. If you don't want to tell stories with the big three being Bruce Wayne, Clark Kent, and Diana Prince anymore, you want to tell stories about Yara Flor, Jonathan Kent, and Jace, then by all means, tell those stories. We're ready to read those stories. Tell them to us. But shift the perspective. Pick up in a parallel world where these guys have taken over, or just let them take over. Find a reason for them to take over other than you've destroyed those characters. Right? Does it have to be a catastrophic destruction of those characters before they can move on? No, it doesn't. Case in point being Jack Knight. Who's Jack Knight? If you're not aware of who Jack Knight is, Jack Knight was Starman. And his story came to its conclusion, and he said, I'm done as Starman. I'm retired. And he walked away from being Starman. They didn't have to kill him. They didn't have to tear down everything about Starman to bring forth a new Starman to rise out of the ashes. They didn't. He just passed the torch. And next thing you know, we've got Stargirl. That's the formula, guys. That's what works. Do that, for Pete's sake. If you want somebody to take up the mantle, fine. Let them take up the mantle. For Pete's sake, let Bruce Wayne get married to Catwoman and just retire, and then let Jace be the next Batman. That's fine. Do that. But instead, we have to destroy Gotham and turn it into some weird fascist state, and all these really weird things happen to all the characters. It doesn't have to be like that. Maybe there are people who are loving these stories, but I'm not. Man, I'm just not. I am sick to death of the bad news that come in these comics. It's depressing, and I'm sick and tired of my comics being depressing when they shouldn't be. I don't want my cape comics necessarily being depressing. All right, my superhero comics, I want to be hopeful, and an occasional dash of darkness is okay. But for the most part, they're superheroes. I want them to be heroes. Heroes. Heroic. If I want dark, gritty, edgy stories, I can go read plenty of Image stuff. Okay, so that's my rant about DC's future state. You guys have just about convinced me to not read Infinite Frontier. You guys have just about convinced me that there's maybe 2 or 3 comics at DC that I want to read from now on, and maybe I should be reading more Marvel. That's sad. I've been a lifelong DC Comics fan, but this is pathetic. It's absolutely pathetic. This company doesn't know what they're doing right now. Okay, so moving on. Image Comics, Radiant Black. Well, this was another one of the comics that Paul and I talked about being on our top 5 list for the week, and we both admitted that one of the reasons that we jumped into it was because of the cover. The cover caught our attention. The cover caught my attention on another comic. Yeah. And it turned out to be not so great. You can't always go by the cover. Obviously, you can't always go by the cover. But in this case, it worked out. Radiant Black was entertaining. Kind of a you kind of catch a character who's it's not quite the Peter Parker routine, but there's some similarities there, right? But this guy's in his 30s, and he's gone out into the world and he's failed. He's failed to make it in the world, and he's come back home to his hometown as a defeated man, and he doesn't know where he's going next with life. And then all of a sudden he finds this bizarre, you know, black hole thing floating in the air, and he touches it and he's in this suit and he has powers. It appears he can fly. It appears he can manipulate gravity, and it was a very coherent, cohesive first issue. It made me kind of sympathetic to his plight. It made me want to know more about what's going on. Ended with a pretty good little cliffhanger that draws you in for the next issue. This was successful. I liked this. This first issue worked for me. So I will be back to read more Radiant Black. They'll have to drop off pretty substantially in quality for the next issue before I would stop reading it. At this point, it's intriguing. I want to see where it goes. Another successful #1 issue was Black Hammer Visions from Dark Horse. This was an issue written by Patton Oswalt, and it was quirky. It was a different angle on the story, but it worked. It worked. This is the Gale character who is she's sort of the analog, the Black Hammer analog of Captain Marvel or Shazam. A little bit different thing. Like the kid is the one with the superpowers, so she turns into a a little girl who has the superpowers, and normally she is like a 50-year-old woman. So kind of an inverted relationship there between them from the Captain Marvel one. But this was a look at her story, not so much with her as the central character. It was more from some other girls from the town, and we'll look back through their memories and then some encounters with her, and pretty cool little story. These are all, I think, going to be standalone little oddball stories, and that's okay. That works for me. We'll see what the second issue is like with Jeff Johns. That's an interesting thing to check out as well. So, a couple of #1 issues that were good. Daredevil was fantastic. Dark Detective was good. Superman Wonder Woman was good. And then everything else that had the Future State label on it was absolute garbage. Hot garbage. It's nonsense. So I don't know where this leaves me with Future State, because there's still quite a few issues to resolve. As long as they're Gotham centric, I think I can get through them. I still don't like the fact that Gotham has become what it's become, but I can deal with it because at least it's been a cohesive thing, and it's easier for me to see a city becoming what Gotham has become than it is for me to see the entire world left in ruins. And well, after we recovered from that, then the entire world was left in ruins again. So I don't know. I'm gonna cautiously dip my toes into the water of Future State next week. Whereas King in Black, I believe next week is a actual King in Black issue, and I'm excited for that again. So I don't know. Paul and I will be back early next week to talk to you about what's coming out next week and what's worth your time, what probably won't be worth your time. I will try not to go off on a tangent about how bad Future State sucks in the future. It's sad because I started off so excited about this event, and some things have been good, some things have been really good, but there's so much that's just garbage, absolute hot garbage. So, reminder as I wind things down here, reminder that next week on this program we will be talking to David Taylor II, who has written a comic. He's written some novels. He's made his own role-playing game. He's just a super cool guy, and we're excited to have him on the show. Then beyond that, sometime in March, we will have Sean Wang on and talk about runners. I'm excited to do that as well. Paul and I, again, will be back later this week for Paul's Pull List to tell you what's coming up in the week ahead. Look, if you're watching the show on YouTube, hit like, subscribe, turn on the notifications, all that kind of stuff. If you're listening to us on the podcast, leave us a voice message, and we'll put your voice message on the show, or we'll answer your questions. Ask us an insightful question through the voice message system, and we'll answer your question on the show. Or, leave us some suggestions. What do you like about the show? What do you dislike about the show? What should we change? What should we keep? Leave that information for us on the voice message. The link is there in the show description, so check it out. And you should also, if you like, science fiction and fantasy and TV and movies, you should check out our sister show, World Class Nerd. You can find links to that in the show description as well. So you should do all that. You really should. All right. So, in conclusion, King in Black is still going pretty strong. It just took a week of some really good tie-ins to cure me of my crossover fatigue there. DC's Future State is not going so well. Image and Dark Horse have got some interesting stuff going on, and there's plenty of good comics to be had out there. They're just not all coming from DC, that's for sure. All right, this is Bryan Lamb, your host for Tales from the Longbox, signing off until next time.